everyone, it's Jessica Dybzinski. Welcome to another Makers with Heart video collaboration. For the month of March, we are playing with the color of the year from Close to My Heart, which is this really pretty melon color. So I've gone ahead and I've already pulled a couple of different papers and embellishments. I did cut this doily, this is the fancy doilies, out of the melon cardstock, but I don't end up using it in my project. But at this point, I thought maybe I would. So I have a whole bunch of papers here from the January to March mix-in collection, and I pulled the ones that feature that melon color. I thought they worked really well for these two 4x4 photos that I have of my daughters and me, and I'll tell a little bit more about those photos and the purpose of this layout later, but I am going to use a flip flap with them. So my main stamp set that I'm going to use for embellishments is this one here called I'd Rather Be Reading. And yes, I would rather be reading, unless it's scrapbooking, and then I would also rather be scrapbooking. But it's a really adorable stamp set, and I'm excited to play with it for the first time in this layout. So for this month, like I said, we are all going to be featuring the color Melon in our projects. It is the color of the year for Close to My Heart, and I just really love this color. It's a really fun, it's orange and it's kind of melon. And I love how in these mix-in papers that there are a lot of good color combinations with it. So we've got like sapphire and honey butter and glacier and things that I never really would have thought to pair together with melon. But I was really inspired by the colors in these papers, and that was just kind of what made me pull them for this particular project. Now, I'm not really following any particular, dimensions for my papers here. I'm really working with scraps at this point out of my paper pack. So I will leave some of these dimensions in the description box down below in case you want to recreate this. But I think if I remember correctly, I might have also seen a post on Pinterest, and that kind of was what jump-started some of my design ideas here, but I really just went, off on my own and started cutting some papers based on what I had. So I know that I want to do a little bit of tearing at the top of my layout. So I'm grabbing this striped piece and I'm pulling it towards myself. And when I do that, it's going to reveal the white core in the paper. And so if you want to see the white core, pull your tear towards you. And then if you don't want to see, push your tear away from you. And then you'll have like the torn edge, but not any of the core showing. So I definitely want to see that white core, and I'm thinking I'm going to layer it over top of this sapphire polka dotted paper, and then I'll probably put like a strip of melon cardstock just at the top as like a finishing piece. Later, I end up cutting a little bit of a thicker strip of melon cardstock, and I layer that striped piece over top of the two rather than butting them up next to each other. This one here has circles in it with all of those different colors that are also in the striped pattern. And then I'm just going to kind of play around a little bit. I'm not sure, do I want to repeat the stripes down here in this banner or use the other side has all of the same colors in it? I decided to go with this one just because it's a little bit darker and I think it pops a little bit better. And I will edge distress all of these later because I know right now they look like they're getting lost a little bit on my white cardstock base. So really, I have like these two photos here, and they're kind of random. They're not from the same day even, but they were really cute. Well, the one's a cute photo. The other is not the greatest of pictures, but it still was a great memory. And they both were taken during March of last year, and they had to do with school activities around March's Reading Month. And so I thought, even though they weren't the same day or the same event, they were because of the same reason. And so since I just had the single photo for each of them, I decided to group them together. And then because the one is not as great of a photo, that's why I'm going to use a flip flap and just have this one here showing on top. Now, as I said, I'm using my scraps from that paper pack, and I wanted to bring that sapphire polka dot piece down to the bottom of my layout as well, but I didn't have enough to actually cut a strip that would be 12 inches across. So I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to cut it at 3/4 of an inch tall, and then I'm just going to have a little gap here that I'll need to cover up with something later, and I will find a way to make that work. So that's just a little trick if you are using scraps as well and you don't have a full length of what you need. Can you hide that seam with an embellishment or another piece of paper or something like that? And that's what I'm going to do. So here I'm just edge distressing these with some sapphire ink. Here's a cool tip I just recently learned from my friend Katie Weeks. If you need to edge distress the pennant part of a banner, just give a gentle push in the center that doesn't create a crease, and then you can get your sponge tool right into the corner of that pennant. I was like, oh my gosh, that is just brilliant. I love that. All right, so I decided I had this 2.5-inch circle here that I cut out of Melon cardstock, and I didn't want to edge distress it with that sapphire ink, but it still needed something. So this is a trick that I learned from watching Katie Taylor and over at Scrap and Katie. And you just take these metallic paint pens, and using the one that has the really broad nib, you can run it around the edge of your paper, and it will create this really cool like gold edging on it. It might damage the nib, but honestly, that's probably the only way I'll ever use those markers, at least that broad tip one. And so I am perfectly fine with that. But it just kind of catches on the paper and it doesn't wobble or anything. It makes a really nice even line all the way around it. So that's how I'm going to do something to the edges of that piece there. But everything else is in sapphire. And then I decide, well, I'm just going to have it coming up over that seam. I don't need to waste that whole circle. So I'm going to find where the half point is and snap that in half, and I'll find a place to put the other part of that circle later for my layout. So that will work right there to cover up where I didn't have a 12-inch strip. And like I said, I'll kind of play around with this other half circle later. It's not going to stay there, but it does work well to kind of build some of my embellishments on. So I'll get this one stuck down here to the bottom. And then I'm going to start working on some of my stamping. So I love this stamp set. Like I said, this is my first time playing with it. I was so excited that I had these March is Reading Month pictures that work so perfectly for it. I'm a huge reader. I'm an high school English teacher. So, as soon as I saw this, I knew I had to have it. And I just love, especially this cat on top of the books. Oh my goodness. After I colored it, I kept walking by and looking at it and just not admiring my color, but admiring like how cute he is and just so sweet. I'm like, I might have to make some birthday cards or something with that same die cut and stamp. It is just adorable. I decided to put my die cut pieces up on some thin 3D foam tape, and I didn't realize it when I started putting it down, but I was actually almost out of my thin 3D foam tape, and had I realized it, I probably would have popped these up a different way. So one trick that you can do is, if you want to conserve foam tape, or you're like me and you're running out, just take your thin cuts and run them through on some scrap pieces of cardstock a couple of times, and then glue them all together. And that's probably what I would have done just to make sure that I saved the last bit of foam tape, but I didn't realize until I started putting it on the back. All right, I do like to glue my photos together when I'm putting them in a flip flap. It just kind of keeps them in exactly the right spot so that you don't see a little bit of the edge poking out from the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and put those together and get my flip flap attached here. So one way that I like to do this is just to pull back the adhesive backing here on this strip, and I only pull a little bit back, and then I kind of fold it up and hold it with my finger. That gives me a little bit that is exposed, but I can still line everything up, make sure it's all straight, and double and triple and check myself because these flip flaps are really sticky. And once I'm certain that I've got it in the right spot, I hold it down very carefully, and then I pull the rest of that backing away. And that just has been the easiest way that I have found to put these flip flaps down and make sure that you're getting it straight, because really you have only one attempt to get it right. They are incredibly strong and durable. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put my other piece down here. I knew that I wanted to have that bookshelf kind of coming into my journaling spot, so part of it will be covered when the flip flap is down. So that's why I'm going to put that there. I apologize about my head. And then now that I've got that done, I need to figure out my title. So there are a couple of really cute little sentiments on this stamp set, but I wasn't really sure about using any of them for this layout, either that they kind of worked or that they were the right size for that little half circle, which in my head was where I needed the title to go. And so that was just kind of like stumping me a little bit. I did decide to pull out the one that says bookish, which is really cute because the O's in the word are a pair of glasses. And as soon as I stamped it, I could tell already I wasn't really loving it. But I thought, okay, maybe if I stamp a few more things onto the circle, then that will make me like it more. Usually that doesn't work, but I was like, I'll give it a try. What's it going to hurt? So I pulled out this row of tiny little hearts from that stamp set and I stamped them in Melon. And even though I knew I didn't like it down in that half circle, while I had the stamp in my hand, I was like, maybe I'll stamp them across the top of that piece of paper. And then I also pulled out one of my date stamps and I stamped March up there. And I don't love the stamping right there at the top, but I'm going to let it be. I'm going to go ahead and cover up down at the bottom though. So I did cut another little strip of that pattern paper and I made sure that one edge of it was like a clean cut, meaning I didn't have my cut going through the centers of any of the polka dots. It just kind of ended on a sapphire piece. And that way, when I put it down, it doesn't look like, you can't really tell that there's a seam there because I didn't cut any polka dots in half. And then I'm going to cover the other end of the seam with this other die cut piece from the same stamp set that I colored. And yeah, I'm just going to let March be the title for this page. I don't know, it was, both pictures just had to do with March is National Reading Month, and I don't know, I don't really love titles sometimes on my scrapbook layouts. It's usually something that stumps me. I can't think of anything clever to say or where to put it or how to do it. And so occasionally I don't really have much of a title on my layouts. I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on titles in your scrapbook layouts. Do you ever sometimes leave them off or do something really minimal like this? Because yeah, I'm not a fan of titles. Sometimes to me, that's like the most annoying part of putting a layout together. All right, my final touch here is to grab some of the melon colored enamel dots and sprinkle them around the page. I love these because they have 3 different sizes of circles, stars, and hearts. So I'm using the circles and the hearts in 3 different areas around my page. And I kind of look at it for a minute and then I decide, I think I'm going to call this quits. I think it's done. Like I said, I didn't love that stamping on there, but it's going to be what it is. I am in love with the stamp and die cuts though on this page, and I can't wait to use them again on another project or even on a birthday card or something like that. That's my take on the color melon. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Tomorrow is Kim Ferguson, and each day after that is another one of the Makers with Heart. And so we will all be releasing every day from the 10th through the 16th of the month. So I will leave those links in the description box down below as they become available. So please make sure to come back and see what the other ladies have done with the color melon. Additionally, we are planning something really exciting. We're going to host a virtual crop with an open Zoom room on April 22nd. So mark your calendar. We've got more details to come. We've been planning this out for a little while and we're really excited to share it with all of you. There will be a couple of classes and demonstrations throughout the day. And then, like I said, an open Zoom in the evening for several hours so that we can all craft together. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day. Happy crafting. Bye.